All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting for the new school year of the Pillar 2 Advisory Committee. My name is Brian King. I had been the chair of the committee during our work together last year. And we're going to begin today's meeting with a round robin of introductions, and then I will remind the committee of our purpose and our charge from the AIB, and then start looking forward. Brief introduction of myself. I'm a principal at an elementary school in Charles County, and this will make the third year that I've served on the committee. And with that, I will pass it to my co-chair, Patricia.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. I'm Patricia Twitty. I'm an assistant principal at a school in Prince George's County. I think this is also my third year being on the committee, so happy to be back and engage in some conversation. And I will pass it over to Rob.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rob Willoughby. I'm the Director of Administrative Services for Caroline County Public Schools over on the Eastern Shore. So I am working with HR, benefits, payroll, teacher induction, all those fun Pillar 2 things. And I'm also an MBCT in social studies and history. And this is my second year on the committee, and I will pass it over to John.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm currently a middle school math teacher in Montgomery County, Maryland, and I think this is my third year on the committee, and excited to be here. And I am going to pass it to Justin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Robinson. I am the, AIB member who works with this particular advisory committee. I am in my 15th year as a teacher with PGCPS. I guess technically I'm a numeracy coach, so I support first and second year math teachers in a bunch of different middle schools. But I do have the great fortune to also teach one class every day of eighth grade math students. So that is the best part of my day before I work with the adults. I will pass it along to Obianaju.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evgenia Umba. I'm the student member on the board. I go to school in Carroll County, and I've been on the board this is my second year. And I'll pass it to who hasn't gone yet. I think that was everyone.
I think we've hit, yes, all of our committee members. So thank you, everyone, for being back and giving your time and energy to another year's work together. And it's great to see everyone. The next piece of our agenda is to review the advisory committee purpose and expectations. So just to remind ourselves and anyone that might be tuning in or might later take a look at this meeting, Pillar 2 of the blueprint, the headline of Pillar 2 is high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. And to remind ourselves of the major pieces of the pillar, I'm going to read off a graphic that's also on the AIB website. There are 5 pieces within it: to recruit and maintain a high quality and diverse teacher workforce, to increase the rigor of teacher prep programs and licensure requirements, to implement comprehensive in-service educator training, to establish new statewide educator career ladder and professional development systems, and finally, to improve educator compensation. So that's the scope of our work and the scope of the topics that we look to discuss. And really, our role is to make sure that all stakeholders are heard across the state. We know that we have a variety of different LEAs across the state. Some are rural, some are large urban. So the AIB started these advisory committees to make sure that everyone from across the state had a chance to have input and to offer their feedback on the current blueprint and also recommendations around the blueprint. I also took a look on the AIB website under our pillar, And the purpose, what we've been charged with, I'll just read a few of the responsibilities. One is to channel input from various stakeholders representing the rich diversity of Maryland, with members and perspectives coming from diverse geographic, racial, ethnic, cultural, and gender backgrounds. Also to identify problems, challenges, and barriers that may arise, and insights and suggestions on what the AIB could do to address them. And finally, to also share and highlight successes on the work of LEAs, the AIB, and Blueprint implementation. I'll pause briefly. Does anybody have any other dynamics to add on our scope and our role in our time together? Okay, great. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to AIB staff to provide us with some updates.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Libby Diamond. I am a policy analyst with the AIB, and officially this year I will be joining our Pillar 2 Advisory Committee. I'm really excited to be here. Before joining the AIB, I was in Washington, D.C. as a special ed teacher and then a vice principal for 7 years. And then I transitioned to become a literacy coach for the region for the CHR network that I worked with. During my time as a vice principal, I spent a lot of time coaching our teacher residents through our Grow Your Own program. And so I've learned a lot about that. And so excited to talk to you about that topic maybe this year a little bit, but just really excited to be here. So yeah, thank you. A couple of updates. First, we are excited to introduce and welcome 2 new board members this year. We will introduce Katina Quick McQueen. She will be joining us from St. Mary's. And we will also have Robin Warner joining us from Talbot. You might know her. She used to serve on the advisory committee for Pillar 3. We will formally introduce them at our next AIB meeting on September 18th. And they will be replacing Dr. Laura Stapleton and Dr. Mara Doss. So that's really exciting. Also wanted to update you that we have our progress monitoring conferences with LEAs started last week, and those will continue through the end of October. And you all helped provide input on the BCP updates last spring. And our board did approve those updates. And so we are working on a final version of that will be posted to our website as soon as that is done. Let me see what else. Career ladders. I am part of that process for the review process. So those are underway. And so we're excited to hopefully talk about those this year. And I think that is it for AIB updates. Any questions? Okay, so every year we as committees have to talk about committee leadership and thinking about leadership roles. And so I want to take this opportunity first to thank Brian and Patricia for all your hard work as the chair and vice chair over the last year. And so now we just are going to, we need to go through the process of talking about these roles, if there are going to be openings this year. And then we can kind of take this process in 2 ways. We can, talk about any open roles, and then we can have an open discussion together. Or if you feel more comfortable, you can email me privately about open roles, and I can bring that back to the committee next meeting. So I'll pass it over to Brian to help lead this discussion.
Great, thank you. So really the 2 roles would be the chair and the vice chair, from my understanding. Good, looking for a head nod, and I got it.
Yes.
And like you said, last year that was myself and Patricia. And so I think that at this point last year I remember us doing this in an open meeting, which I think we can work forward tonight on that. So I enjoyed my time as chair, but I'm definitely looking forward to stepping back and letting someone else step into that role and facilitate meetings and determine topics. Although I will say it really is a team effort, so it's not a heavy responsibility to be chair because we do work together. And I'll allow Patricia a moment to express whether she's looking to remain in the role, and then others can jump in.
So I am more than willing to serve wherever the need is. And so if someone else would like the opportunity to serve, I'm okay with that. And if not, I'm more than happy with staying on. It's really just, I understand everyone has a lot happening and going on. So whichever can support the work, I'm fine with.
Okay, so to our three other members, Obianaju, John, Rob, if anyone wants to express interest in any roles, the floor is open.
I mean, I'll just say that if there is an opening somewhere, I will certainly step up. I wouldn't have done it last year in my first year, but I feel a little bit more comfortable with that year under my belt.
So I'll just say I've served this chair before. I'm willing to serve wherever's needed.
So with that, it sounds like Obianaju, are student members allowed to serve in those roles, Libby? Yes. Obianaju, any input or any thoughts or?
I agree with the rest of them. Like if it's needed, I'll step up. But I'm willing to be wherever.
And students are usually in a special student role, and so you obviously can have a voice in this conversation, but we like to make sure that you kind of have that unique student role on this committee.
Okay, so we have a lot of educators in the room with everybody says, I'll do whatever I need to do for the team. Does anybody want to nominate themselves or someone else? Let's start with the chair.
I nominate Patricia for chair.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Any other nominations for chair? Okay, anybody want to nominate themselves or anyone else for vice chair?
Oh, John, you look like you were about to say something.
I mean, I'm certainly willing to be vice chair, but if Rob or Ibanaju want to step into the roles, then go for it.
I was gonna say I'll nominate Rob for vice chair.
Sounds good.
Great. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, sounds like we have one nomination for each spot. Libby, do we actually have to hold a vote or do we just?
I think that if you guys just want to email me and then we can solidify over email, that's fine too. Unless if you want to do it that way or just verbally do it as well, that's fine too.
Okay, great. So we will check in and confirm over email, but it sounds like Patricia.
So, I mean, if Rob accepts the nomination and Patricia does, I say we just confirm now and save an email.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'll accept my nomination.
Great. Well, congratulations to both of you guys. I'm looking for the emoji where the little thing pops up and sprays confetti, but I can't find it. So I owe you one of those eventually. There it is. All right. Thank you, Justin. Perfect. We have our chair and our vice chair for the upcoming year. I believe that at this point, John is going to give us a year in review.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. So just thinking about the different topics that we looked at last year, we, as with many of our years, we looked at a plethora of things covering Pillar 2. So one of the things that we looked at is really looking at increasing diversity and how our county's looking to increase diversity in staff. And we heard from facilitators from Kent County and Washington County just want to say that one of the things that I think is a strength of our pillar in our meetings is we always find partners to come and participate. So that happened in September. We also had a meeting talking about the Southern Region Conference that happened in that was our meeting in January. So again, a lot about teacher prep, a lot about recruiting and retaining high quality teachers. How are we connecting to teacher preparation programs? We also then talked about induction. So we sort of had a movement from teacher prep to induction and heard from Carroll County and how they're working with Towson University on induction. And then finally, we talked about some of the roles related to the career ladder and what things look like there. So that's sort of been a overview of this year, and excited to look at different topics for the upcoming year.
Great. Thank you, John, for recapping. And I agree. And I saw a lot of head nods around the idea of bringing in LEAs and partners to talk about the work that's happening across the state. I think that has been a strength of our work together. So that's great. The next item on our agenda is now, after we've reviewed last year, start looking forward for a planning discussion. And for that, I'm gonna let Rob take the lead.
Sure. So, as we went through last year, we did, as John said, we got a lot of really great presentations from across the state. And so kind of looking this year, kind of want to open it up to folks if they've got topics or things that they would like to put on agendas or invite folks to come into. In the legislative session last year, Pillar 2 kind of took some lumps, I guess, a little bit with some of the pauses that happen with like collaborative time and things like that. And so in some ways, that does provide us an opportunity now that we have a pause and we have time. Is that something we would want to dive into a little bit, to have a discussion around, okay, this was something that was going to be a multi-year, a 7 or 8 year phase in. It's now been paused for 4 years. Do we want to maybe start having the discussion about planning and how that looks? And, there's a lot of numbers and figures being thrown out, how many teachers you'd have to hire and this, that, and the other. Like that might be an opportunity for something that maybe came out of legislative session that was a little, I don't know, I was a little surprised, but that we take as an opportunity. Something else that's on the horizon that is coming up is the mandate for school principals to be MBC by 2029. And so kind of looking at, okay, that's not here yet. And we know that there will be some sort of waiver put in place. I believe MSDE has the responsibility for the waiver. School administrators can now get funding support for their MBC, which was a legislative change that we had, but just kind of looking at sort of what does that look like, or is there a correlation between MBC and those 5 core propositions to teacher leadership and to administration? Or if there is going to be a waiver developed, is there things that should be in the waiver that maybe we can give input into before it gets developed? But MBC is like a 2 to 3 year thing, and it's already, 26 is looking at us, and this goes into effect in 29. So folks are going to have to start making some kind of career decisions or credentialing decisions pretty soon to meet that deadline. And so just trying to get some clarity around that. And then personally, the last one that I'll throw out that I know I said before just is trying to maybe get a little bit of feedback or maybe some input on just the definition of teacher and how it's not inclusive of everybody that has impact with our kids. The way that it's defined in law, with not including school counselors, not including some of those other teachers that are in the bargaining unit, but might not be a teacher of record per se and things like that, but still have a direct impact. And so we're starting to see that now as, you know, we've now done this for 3 years. And so folks are interested in, let's say, pursuing their MVC. And then you have to have the conversation and say, well, I'm sorry, but you don't meet this legislative definition of teacher, and therefore you're not subject to this. And they start to ask questions about, well, do you not value me? And do you not value my role and things like that? Is that something we can take a look at and maybe provide some insight on? So those are just three things that are kind of coming up. Like I said, one from the legislative session, one just because it's a mandate that's coming, and one that I just personally see as something that I would love to see kind of a fix for. But I'll open it up. I don't know if there's other topics out there that folks would like to explore or whatever. The analogy that I made is, you know, kind of the Kirwan Commission was kind of the research arm before the blueprint became a thing. And so if some of these things are now pushed out a little bit, is that a role that maybe this committee can take on and do some research and provide some insight and maybe some suggestions as we try to flesh some of these things out? So I'll open it up to everybody else for things that you might think that you would like to spend some meeting time on this year.
I think I saw Justin's hand before mine, so go ahead, Justin.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I want to hear from you first.
Okay. So I want to piggyback off of a lot of things that Rob talked about. I really think looking at the role of national board really needs to be explored some more in the research aspect, especially about the idea of principals needing national board certification, and thinking as well about the practical aspect of that. So right now, there is no leadership national board certification from my understanding. So that means that you would have to have a principal in a classroom teaching for at least a certain amount of time. And not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but what does that practically look like? I know that also some of the feedback that we got from the public around Pillar 2, there's still a lot of confusion around the amount of time that assistant principals are supposed to be working with students. So what does that, I think getting more clarity on that, helping establish what that looks like would be something to think about, because that's something else that's coming up on the horizon. And I know I brought this up as well, and I really like Rob. I'm curious what's happening in your county and other counties. The indirect impact of some of the policies that are happening at the same time. So I will tell you, like, I applied for my own national board, and certainly I've always had aspirations in administration. But if I were to get national board and get the $10,000 bonus, where I'm at right now in my career, my salary might be similar to that of an administrator, but it would be 10 months instead of 12 months. And so I think that one of the things that I would like us to do, and it's tied a little bit to what Rob said, what you said of the research aspect, is what are the unintended consequences of some of the policies that the Kirwan Commission put into place with the blueprint that were, certainly best intentioned, but they might not have thought ahead about some of these unintended things that are happening. Sort of like, Rob, you already mentioned it, the idea of the planning time aspect. Certainly we want more planning time, but more planning time means that we need a lot more teachers. And if we're struggling to hire teachers as it is, you can't have both at the same time. And so I love the idea of, and I don't know, raise this to Libby as well. Like, I love the idea of us, in addition to almost doing two things. In addition to the monthly meetings, if we were to choose one topic that we would delve into as a committee doing research and be able to go back to the AIB and say, here are some things that we are seeing from our county, from our district, from the numbers that you may not be aware of that are happening. And here are some of our recommendations on potential tweaks to the blueprint itself through legislature that otherwise, if those tweaks aren't made, they could have, repercussions down the line. So that's sort of where I've thought about, and would want us to think about as a committee.
Hey, so a lot of what has been shared are things that I, as a board member, would like to get a lot of feedback from you all on. So I'll just kind of like uplift the ones that resonated with me in terms of the things that I know we have to discuss this year on the board. So the collaborative time piece I think is important. I think that there's a lot of I guess questions around the state for how that could look, and there's like opportunities to be innovative there. So I'd like to hear more about what people are doing or wanting to do. So for me, collaborative time is a big one. The second one is, I guess the second two are both related to the career ladder. So part A, 2A would be the professor distinguished teacher part of the career ladder. We haven't produced guidance for any of the LEAs about how that should look. And so I'd be curious of people's thoughts, or if we could get maybe some teacher prep programs, because like that's the one piece of the career ladder where you have to work, LEAs have to work with higher education. And I think that's I mean, it's going to be a transition, right? Like everything, but that one's a little bit harder to implement than 4A and 4B have been. So I'd like to spend some time discussing that. So that's 4A. Then 4B would be like the admin track, which a couple of you have already mentioned, with respect to like, what does it look like to say an assistant principal has to spend 20% of their time working with children, but like not necessarily being the teacher of record, but like, how is that looking in different districts? Like, what does that 20% look like? And then also as a principal, you all brought up the waiver process. I will say, because I was on the committee meeting, MSDE already started talking about the waiver process and what that will look like. If you're interested more about it, it maybe, I don't know if it was like last month or the month before last, one of the policy committee meetings, they discussed it. So you might could hear some of that conversation. So I don't know how much more we need to say about it, but of course, the administrative track is something that hasn't been discussed in terms of guidance for LEA. So that's kind of like my 4B. It's that principal and AP part. And then lastly, the idea of the researching around national board. I think that conversation's come up quite a bit. Libby, I also think that do we talk about that in board meeting or something? Like it sounds familiar. Like just the idea of like what other information we think is needed to learn over
Yeah,
time.
it was a proposed update to the BCP that we do some research or do a literature review and find out what research is out there and what next steps, we might need to think about from that literature review.
So that would be great if like as that progresses, if this is a space where we can have more in-depth conversations around it, because I know like a lot of times when things come before the board, it's not as like we don't get to spend as much time as we want to on certain things. And so this might be a place where there can be more robust discussion around that literature review, around like whatever next steps might need to happen. So I think that's what I have in mind. So collaborative time is the first one. 2A is like professor distinguished teacher. 2B is the admin track, meaning APs and principals, plus that waiver that MSD is already discussing. And then the third thing is the research part around like national board and what it means and what it could mean. What kind of research are we interested in learning more about? Like, so if we have to commission research be done, like what is it that we want to know? Those are my three things.
Patricia, I think you had your hand up.
I would say, piggybacking on what everyone else has said about leadership and MBCT, my focus and lens would be on what our district's doing to prepare leaders. And like Rob stated, okay, 2029 sounds like it's far away, but it's really not that far away. Most of the principals that I know that are MBCT certified, they did that when they were in the classroom or in like, that in between role. So even if there is a county that is having a cohort of current principals and APs that are going through the national board certification piece, and what does that look like? Because you're not directly attached to a particular group of students, or just what that looks like. So I think I would love to explore that from the lens of what are school systems doing to support their leadership, knowing I think you have like 3 or 4 years to complete that. So this would be the time to really start doing that. The collaborative planning piece, I would love to have that conversation, but also through the lens of all of the different negotiated agreements that different districts have, and the impact that that has on what the goal is of the collaborative planning time with AB, giving the time frame that is the day, and what does that look like with various levels of out of classroom support staff positions. What does that really look like? Even in my county, my district, from one school to a next, that looks totally different as far as how that could be successful. And then the other last piece was about the job embedded PD. I am exploring and learning that more and more people are coming to education that do not go through teacher induction programs, or do not, go through a 4-year college and then they transition into education. So talking about some of those in services, what are we really doing to build this high quality workforce? If I have a mathematics degree, but I've never taken a class in any type of pedagogy, or I'm a chemist, I'm whatever, but I'm not necessarily an educator and a teacher. And we are placing these very knowledgeable people in front of students to educate them when they don't have, as I've said multiple times, the pedagogy and the skill to do that. And so really hearing from some LEAs around perhaps some creative things, or what they're doing to provide them with that learning, understanding, yes, they have to go to certification, they have to take those classes, but what are some things that we can do day one to kind of support with that piece? And so I think those are all my topics to explore.
My only additional thoughts, in addition to what's been mentioned, because we have a couple years worth of topics now, but just to throw a couple more in there, is I think one piece that we didn't talk about last year, when I think about Pillar 2, the big actors are LEAs. We heard from a lot of them, Institutes of Higher Education, and MSDE. And I would like to hear a bit more about what MSDE is doing in terms of offering support for what's happening with Pillar 2 across the state. And then the only other idea that I have is to try to have a cross-pillar meeting. And that might be for the spring, once we realize what we're most interested in discussing. But whether it's with Pillar 1 or Pillar 4, finding a way to collaborate across a pillar, I think might be a good goal for us this year, to have a joint meeting.
And I don't mean to interject, but I actually got to listen to the Pillar 1 committee meeting earlier this week, and they'd also like to do a cross pillar meeting. And one of the topics we talked about was the career ladder for ECE, and talking with this group about the career ladder, and thinking about how they are really working together. So that could be a great topic.
Okay, so I just wanted to share something that was kind of from my experience last year in Carroll County. As you guys know, there's a lot of like confusion and changes that was happening in Carroll County last school year. And I feel like this isn't really specifically with Pillar 2, but this also could be like a cross-pillar thing, is that just finding a way to like share our updates or our like discussions with the public to make that more accessible. because I feel like a lot of the problems that were discussed last year is just that most people just didn't really know what was going on. And it was just kind of like a lot of miscommunication going back and forth and a lot of misinformation. And I think that could have been resolved if there was a lot more like transparency with what was being discussed in these meetings. And I think we could work on kind of doing better with sharing that with other people.
Awesome. Anybody else have ideas? I think that's everybody has had a chance now to speak.
Yes, I don't mean to jump in one more time, but just two I would like to put on your radar for next spring. One, we did have our director of Joy came in, and she did an overview of the legislative session and the results and the impact of Blueprint on Blueprint. So I'd love to offer that to the committee again, sometime in April. And then the committees did the BCP feedback, and we brought in public commenters, and so we'd really like to do that again, but we'd like to do it a little earlier, so maybe in early May this coming year. So just a couple of things to also keep on the radar.
I wanna piggyback on what Abinaju said, because, and this is honestly not just Pillar Two, but I feel like in general, ways to communicate updates right now is very, or just information is very one way, that people have to sign up to get them, or they go to the websites to get them, or they do other things, and to be honest, even thinking of, and this is just participating in giving feedback on Pillar 5 and looking at Pillar 2. I mean, we only had maybe 6 or 7 people total giving feedback. And so I really wonder if there are other ways, whether it's focus groups, whether that we can get the information out to, the different stakeholders. Because I agree, I 100% agree. And it's not just with this advisory board, but across, honestly, and it's not anybody, not pointing fingers at anybody, but just in general with the AIB or even from MS, they stuff is not getting out. And it's always, to be honest, what I see is it's always a one-way process. If you want to give feedback, come to our website, come here, come there, go do this, go do that. It's very rarely that I know of that we are going to people. And so I know that we have this meeting, which is great. And I'd be curious from statistics, what are the, how many people end up watching or watch these videos? Because I would guess that it's not tons when you think about everybody across the state. And so that could be a bigger picture issue, but just want to say I 100% agree with that.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And like Brian said, we've got many topics here. So we'll have a busy set of agendas. I know the requirement is for the panel to meet quarterly. With just the volume of topics, though, probably want to stick to a monthly meeting for this coming year. I'm seeing head nods and things like that. And then timing of the meetings. Does 4:30 work for everybody still? Or is there a better time that would work? Just kind of open that up.
I can make 4:30 work. I would prefer a bit later of meetings. I think last year we started at 5, maybe even 5:30. I don't know. That allows folks to potentially commute and then do these meetings from home. So I'd be in favor of a later meeting time, either 5 or 5:30.
Okay.
I would second that in general, and I know everybody's gonna give me, pretty harsh stares, but going to the idea of reaching people where they're at and getting more people to participate, could we consider um at least one meeting being a even later meeting in the evening in the hopes that we can get more traffic and more people that could be busy right now, either coming home from work or dinner hour, something like that. And if we don't get more traffic, then we scrap it. But I feel like it's at least worth a shot. And maybe we pick a topic that we know is going to be pretty meaty to try to get more outside participation from the public.
So John, when you say later, what time are you thinking?
I mean, I'm thinking like 7:30-ish.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anybody else feedback on time?
Either time works for me. I do like John's idea, especially for that meeting with like public comment. Um, I think I know we said it would be in May, but maybe once we look at the topics, I think that would be awesome. And if we can go ahead and plan it out so that we can publicize it within our networks and start to let people know this is your opportunity to come on and just say, whatever you feel like you need to say around Pillar 2. So I think I'm with you on that one, John, at like 7 to 8 o'clock. Hopefully you've had time to go home, have dinner, get people situated. Definitely the public comment meeting. I don't know if there's another topic that you all, feel like we should have a later meeting for some conversation with different people. And I also want to add, is it possible, and I don't know how everyone feels, if we had longer meetings but less frequent, is that a possibility?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you all feel about that.
So do like an every other month, but do like a 90-minute or a 2 hour and have a couple topics.
I mean, and once we play around with, I feel like we pretty
Mhm.
much summarized MBCT was definitely a topic there.
Sure.
The career ladder, with especially like, so we would have less topics, but we could really spend more time meatier on the topics, especially if we're going to continue to invite various people and LEAs and higher learning institutes so they can present and then we can follow up with the question and the comment. Because I feel like we're
Sure.
always rushed at the end, like, of
Yeah.
course, we need more time, but so if this is September, maybe meeting late October, early November, and that meeting's like 90 minutes, maybe even 2 hours, and then we meet again in January, March-ish, April-ish, and then conclude in May. Just
Yeah.
whichever one you all would prefer.
I like that
So
idea.
That would work for me. Yeah.
yeah, I like that idea as well. I think that um the only thing I think about is with so many topics that we have, that meeting, going in depth for longer meetings, will we be able to get all the topics that we want? So we might have to look at combining a few topics or things like that. But I definitely have always felt over the time in our meetings that we always feel rushed because we get great presentations and get lots of great people sharing. And to be honest, I feel like as a committee, we don't get as much time to either respond to our presenters or as a group come together and sort of think about what was shared. So all for it.
Okay. So what about the idea then, take this back and I know Libby's taking notes in the agenda, but we can try to put together almost like a rough topic agenda, and just send that out offline and just set the meeting dates like that, if that works. And then as we do that, folks can even look at their calendars and say, like, these are some dates to avoid, or, the first Tuesday is always a board meeting, so I can't do that, or whatever the case may be, and we can try to narrow that down, and sort of go from there. So that can be sort of our homework after this meeting a little bit, try to get some organization to this and get some dates solidified, which would be nice too, because even in a longer meeting, we could say, look, just like we did with this meeting, we're going to allot about 40 minutes to a topic. So if you're the presenter for a topic, for the second topic, maybe you don't need to be here at 5 o'clock. You can be here at 5:45 and just honor folks' time that way. So, okay. Well, thank you guys for engaging in that discussion, and we'll do some homework offline then. So I think, let's see, I think Patricia, you're up next.
All right, and I think we're doing good on time. We got a couple minutes. So thank you to everyone for coming out today. I feel like we have created a great launch for this year to really dive deep and have some conversations around a lot of different topics. So please make sure we're all looking out, checking our emails and responding. I do think we should probably plan to have a meeting somewhere in late October, early November. So when the email comes out, and Rob, you and I can collaborate too, just kind of look at your calendar around that time frame. Did we agree on like 5:30 to 7:30? We could map it out, but hope to finish around 7? Or you think later, John?
So I'm just thinking that's like smack in the middle of dinner time. So could we do like 5 to 6:30?
Okay, you want
Or
to go earlier.
yeah.
Does 5 to 6:30 work for you, or you would prefer the 5:30 time? Or honestly though, Libby, does it have to be consistent?
No, it doesn't have to be consistent. I
Okay.
just want to make sure we're really open and we share it with the public.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so we'll try to solidify our date. I'll say by the 20th, at least for our meeting in October, and then that should give plenty of time for public notice.
Mhm.
Thank you all so much again. Excited to continue on our conversations and collaborations with everyone. I hope you all are having a fantastic school year, and it's only going to get better. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you all so much. And I will see you all via email. I will read from you via email and see you sometime in October, early November.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
There, everyone.
Everyone.
Libby, you did a fabulous job.
Oh, thanks. You all did a great job too.
Good job. Rob, I'll send you an email so we can connect.